time goes by, but there is some parents here. Somebody else. How are you doing? Well, you doing okay? What's that?
Don came up to me yesterday and introduced himself to me as Don. And I introduced myself. You still out in the neighborhood?
How's your crew? Can we start with me a little bit more? Very sorry. That's the only bad part. Everything else is
Apparently they won't be able to.
felt like I needed to be really died in the war in MSU Blue Fight, so he thought it was very, very nice code. The only problem I have is the president told me he's got one exactly like me. So I'm going to have to call him every morning and make sure he doesn't wear his right on the side to wear mine. Again, we're just really pleased that all of you are here, and of course we're especially pleased that two retired people are in particular with us, and that is Rosie, Nelson, and Will. They just come from a lengthy tour of the world. They've been to New Zealand and Australia, Tahiti and the Fiji, and who knows where else. And they just said, before I came up here, that Wilma just says that, you know, I'm ready to go, but we're leaving. She's enjoying her retirement. Before we proceed with recognition of the new retirees, I would like to give our president, Ron Eaglin, a chance to make a few remarks to you. Make them real short, though. Keep them on step.
God, you made two mistakes. John isn't really a conservative fellow. And you notice the great lengths he went just to prove that he did not buy that code. He had 1 minute of material to cover, and it took him 5 minutes because 4 minutes he had to disavow. I mean,
Don't get me in more trouble.
oh, you're already getting trouble. Backpedaling on what you said is what first comes out of one's mouth, not what comes out later. Well, welcome to everyone. So pleased to have you here. And I wish I was in a position where I was somewhere long enough that I would have the opportunity to know all of you. And because what a great feeling that is to come back and have spent 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years in an area where you truly have seen people go through stages of their lives and you've kind of grown up with them, and it's always wonderful. I always feel a little remiss when I come to these events that I missed that. Some of you I've gotten to know because you've been active. Some of you are recent retirees, and I've gotten to know you that way. But it always gives me a good feeling in my heart when I come back and see good friends come together and start talking about quote-unquote old times. I got two things I just really want to share with you of what's going on. There's some exciting activities that really affect you in some way. There's a lot of things going on that I can talk about, but he said be short, and I'll be quick as I can. One is the Heritage Room. Many of you heard about that last time. It was just a concept then. But as you leave here today, just look down the hallway into the old gold room, and you can see activity seating. That room is being changed into the name change will be called the Heritage Room. And many of you were aware of this last year when we did our first fundraising to try to pay for that, because we see this like we're paying for ourselves. Faculty and retirees have given this project, and we're making it happen. Just for those of you who may not have been here last year or may not be aware of it, it will be a room that will be done entirely in the native hardwoods. We have received or are receiving from the industry around us, the hardwood industry around us. They're providing all the wood. We have done the fundraising to do all the inside architectural ideas. There's been a large committee. Some retirees have been on that committee to really make it one of the prettiest and finest rooms, not only in eastern Kentucky, but in Kentucky. It's going to be something you're very proud of. There's an area where we will honor current winners of Founders Days and teacher awards and research awards. There's a little section on that occur. Will be, and have already been painted, and they're getting to the point now where we're picking frames, presidential portraits of the presidents who preceded me. I'm not in there, and I didn't want to be in there. You always wait until they're gone and put me in. That's been my attitude. And then, of course, the memorial room. Many of you have memorialized your friends. That's going to be a very, very nice area where we can contribute to those that we place in their names and their service. Now, phase 2 of this project is just now getting underway this year. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do our internal fundraising for it 2 weeks from today. And I've talked with the faculty senate and many others in a large committee, which J.D. Duncan and Betty and John Duncan are on. And this is to create the memorial garden of the Memorial Plaza. And the notion here is no matter who retires here, if they spent their career here and retired this institution, their name will be memorialized in this garden. And we're just phased where we're going to be hiring a landscape architect, had it designed and developed, and put the criteria and there's groups working on that. And that will be phase 2. In that phase is a bell tower. And we were very fortunate that a donor has given us $100,000 for that particular project, and we will be placing a bell tower on it. We're excited to show appreciation and continued appreciation for the many collective years of service that all of you have given to this institution, because all of you will be in that memorial plaza at some point, hopefully 100 years from now, but you will be in that plaza, and it will be something that I think we can all celebrate, and celebrate those who have given their life and service to this institution. And then the second activity that I'd like to explain to you that we're really excited about is just getting just getting underway. And we really are offering an opportunity, if any of you are interested, to contact Porter Daly and we'll get you involved in the project. And that is truly to bring together a faculty, staff, retiree house. As you know, Tick Evans passed away here in the last 4 months, I guess, 3 months. We have purchased that home through our foundation. It is our intent to, in a hands far away, to help organize a faculty, staff, retiree club there, which will have its own board of directors, set its own agenda, set its own, and the university basically is just here to help it get started. The foundation is cooperated completely with this project. The university basically is standing in the background saying it doesn't really buy the building. But those of you who might want to be involved in helping the planning of that, possibly set the planning and sitting on the board, we'd love to have your input. As Porter Daly's person who you would just tell him today and give him the name, we'd love to have you help in that process. It's something I know that Nelson wanted to do for a long period of time. We just couldn't find a place, and we're just lucky enough that we're fortunate enough that we were able to find a place, and we hope that it does work. I hope you enjoy the whole day. I told John that my role here is the cutout version of the presidency. Nelson knows what that means. It just means all you do is need a kind of a 2-figure thing with your hand out shaking and shaking the hand. But I'll be very pleased because I am proud of all those who are leaving us through retirement, and I'll be up here at the ceremony shaking your hand. So thank all of you for your attendance.
Now we do want to recognize those individuals who have indicated that they are going to retire at the end of this fiscal year or this academic year. We're looking at a total of 32 people this year that have opted for either the regular retirement plan or the early retirement plan. I don't know if that's a record or not, but it's certainly a significant number. Also, amongst the ones that have indicated that they would be here this morning, 5 of them have 30 or more years of service in this institution. So we're very pleased to recognize them this morning. The basic plan is I'm going to try to call out the names and ask each individual to come forward as I call their names. And I'm going to ask the president to be to my right, and Michelle Harvey will give the president your retirement pin, and he will give it to you. I think you will have no difficulty putting the pins on all the men, but
We're going to handle it.
okay. He's going to let it real safe.
We had a run through and I dropped 2, so.
Okay. But in any event, that would be the basic plan. And of course, while we have that exchange of pens, to my right, official university photographer, Eric Chenoweth, will take your photograph. I'm sure that at some point you will get a copy of that. So everybody plan here, we will try to proceed. One other thing I might mention is that the president has it. Herb Berry is to be honored this morning. Herb came in 1980. He was in the Department of Information Sciences and an associate professor and served 15 years at this institution. The next individual is from our physical plant staff, is Benny Catron. Benny has been here since 1978. He, of course, has been here for 17 years. The next individual is a colleague of mine when I was in the Department of Physical Sciences, Dr. Maurice. Maurice came here in 1968. Actually, is an alumnus of Morehead State University as well. He's retiring as a professor of science in the Department of Physical Sciences. Having served 27. Joining Maurice from Latin Hall is Dr. Johnny Primer. Dr. Primer is associate professor of the Department of Mathematics. Johnny came here first in 62, I believe. 3-2. The time in there when he was on leave, but I guess from 1962 there was at least a span of time of 33 years there. And not to be outdone, his wife decided she too would retire. She didn't want to be the only working member of the family, and so Mary Primer has announced her retirement. She has been a staff person in the Office of Natural Aid since 1975, for a total of 20 years. Another colleague of mine, and a very close friend, is Dr. David Gilbert. Dave came in 1963. He was a professor of geology at the Department of Physical Sciences. This is his 32nd year at Morehead State University. From the Camden Carroll Library, Betty Lane has announced her retirement. Betty has been at Morehead State University since 1978. She has served a total of 17 years. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning because I felt like I'd been around here long enough that everybody knew who I was. And I don't say that to say that I'm retired, but there are two individuals that are currently active members of the faculty that have served here longer than I. And I'm pleased to say that one of them is retired today. So I'm moving up a little higher on the list of seniority. And that's Frank Langford. Frank came here ahead of me in 1959. He's a professor of philosophy. He has 36 years of service to Morehead State University. The other individual who outranks me is Jim Bean, and I was really hoping that when Ann indicated she was going to retire, that he would take the cue, but
maybe next year.
I think he's going to go over.
He's getting his voice back into shape. I'd like him for another 30 years.
Yeah, I think he's going to be eternal. Let's see, where was I? Jim Payne from the Department of Mathematics is our next inductee. Jim came here in 1966. I think Jim too is an alumnus of Morehead State University. He's an associate professor of mathematics, having served now 29 years. The next individual is Dr. Harry Mayhew. He is a professor, associate professor of education in the Department of Leadership and Secondary Education. Harry is an alumnus of Morehead State University and has served a multitude
I got to tell this story. Harry doesn't remember this, but I remember it. My very first official event here was the breakfast for faculty and staff that they have in the library. And Harry came up to me and said, "You the new president?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he said, "I want my picture taken with you. So you got to take a good time." Remember that? That's a great picture. I guess he didn't think I was going to last till you retire. I made it.
Maybe wasn't sure how long you were.
That's what I said, until I retire.
Bill Pierce is our next honoree. Bill is a professor of marketing at the College of Business. Bill came here in 1964 as a member of our faculty or our staff. And he's been here now for 31 years.
Too long, Bill.
From the Department of Art, we have Joe Sauter. Joe is an associate professor of art. Came here in 1968 and served for 27 years. From the Department of Music, we have David Anderson. David came here in 1978. He's now an associate professor of music. He has served at Florida State University for 17 years.
Higher education opportunities have been available in this county since 1887 for a total of 108 years. And of course in 1922, Morehead Normal School joined the ranks of public higher education, and so this is our 73rd birthday as an institution of public higher education. So again, we are pleased that you're here to help us celebrate the occasion. We are fortunate to have some musicians today from our very fine and outstanding music department. We have the MSU Trumpet Ensemble that is led by Dr. John Burgess, Assistant Professor of Music. And at this time, I would like to ask that you stand while they play our university's alma mater. Please be seated. Their second rendition will be America the Beautiful. Thank you very much, Dr. Burgess. As you may notice, the front of the auditorium is a bit of disarray, but I think we've done a pretty good job of covering it up. This is a busy time of the year for Button Auditorium, with having just completed the MSU pageant and going from that event into the theater program, getting ready for their next play. So they had dress rehearsal in here last night very late, and we tried to get things in order for this event today. Ordinarily we would be up on the stage, but the set is under construction there. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the president of Morehead State University, Dr. Ron G. Eaglin. Dr. Eaglin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this important day in the life of Morehead State University. Dr. Philly gave you a brief history lesson, but as most cases in classes, sometimes you have to say things more than once, and I don't want to go away from my script too much, or we'll be here till this afternoon. So I do want to say a few things that he did say. For those of you who are participating in Founders Day for the first time, here is that quick history lesson. Higher education began on this campus, very close to where we are right now, in 1887, 108 years ago. And it was 73 years ago, exactly, March 8th, 1922 to be exact, that we became a public institution. Mrs. Eaglin and I have learned in our relatively brief tenure here that the traditions of good teaching and concern for the individual are the most valuable legacies of this university. Today we gather to celebrate our rich past and to look hopefully to what will become a bright future on this beautiful campus. And we really are honored that so many of our special friends and those of you in the audience have joined us for this birthday party. All institutions have people who work behind the scenes to make things happen. They're not the ones you necessarily see in the classroom every day or in the cafeteria. These are really the persons that make an institution work on a day-to-day basis. But it takes many to help provide the resources and the guidance to take us forward. And I'd like to, in turn, recognize some of those people who are with us today. First, and it's always hard to choreograph this group because sometimes I don't think their legs will hold them up. I always say, please stand and remain standing until all are introduced, and then we'll show our appreciation for all of them at one time. So I'm going to repeat that. I would like all, as I give their names and what they do, to stand up, and we will hold our applause until they're all up. We will clap, hopefully, whistle if you'd like, but we'll show our appreciation, and I'll go like this, and they'll all sit back down at once. Now, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and it's never worked yet. So we're going to see if it's going to work today. First, we have members of our Board of Regents. And first, our board chairman, Mr. Bill Seaton of Ashland. We have Mr. John Rosenberg of Prestonsburg. Mrs. Helen Pennington of West Liberty. And I don't see Dr. Rhodes. I know he's going to be here for the luncheon, and he may be in surgery, so we may have missed Dr. Rhodes. We have our staff regent, Mr. Gene Caudle, and his wife, Sue. And our faculty regent, Dr. Bruce Mattingly. Now we can all show our appreciation. We're also privileged to have two former presidents of the university, and I have learned how important it is, because I'm a former president of another university too. And I went back this fall, and feelings start coming out when you get on campus. But can I honestly say that these two gentlemen don't say to me, well, this is the way. They do not do that. These are fine, wonderful people who have really led this institution, and I would like to recognize them, have them stand with their spouse, because believe me, this is a twofer job. It takes two to do it. and their able spouses have done wonderful jobs with them. First, Dr. and Mrs. A.D. Albright of Lexington. A.D. and Grace, if you would please stand. The 11th president. And then, I'm sorry, the 10th president. And the 11th president, Dr. and Mrs. Nelson Grosey. Well, now I will hear about it. Dr. and Mrs. Nelson Grody of Lexington and Wilma. Please stand. Many times we have to call upon our friends in the legislature, and we have two wonderful friends who serve us constantly in the legislature. One is with us for the convocation, the other is joining us for lunch, but I want to mention both and have first our State Senator Walter Blevins stand. Walter, and John will join us later. Also representing Senator Mitch McConnell, Kathy Mueller. Kathy, if you would stand and be recognized. Also, it's very important that we work closely with local government, and we're very pleased to have Mr. Clyde Thomas, the Judge Executive, with us today. Judge? And while he's not here in body, he's here in spirit, our Mayor Don Greenwell, who's also, as you know, has had his health problems. He sent a note to us with his regrets. We wish him best for his recovery, but I think we should recognize our Mayor Don Greenwell. Now, one of the highlights of Founders Day, obviously, is each year is the presentation of the University Service Award. That's really one of the main events of here. And we've only been doing this for, I think I counted, and I might be wrong now. I didn't make a note on my notes, but in your program you can see the recipients of the Founder Day Awards for University Service, and you can see we started this in 1978. So this is a very important award. And the recipients are very, very special people. And we have a few of those recipients with us today, and I would ask them all to stand in the same choreograph as we've done before, to stand and remain standing. First, the winner in 1988, Mr. John Collis. And then from 1991, Dr. Roscoe Playforth. The honoree from 1992, Dr. Mary Northcutt Powell. And last year's winner, Dr. J.E. Duncan. Now, also representing the 1979 recipient of the late Linus Fair are two of his daughters, Merle Allen and Nell Mahaney. And representing the 1991 winner, the late Warren Lappin, his grandson, Jim Wells. Jim, way back in the back. Jim, you didn't get the note to be up here front, did you? Let's show our appreciation to these fine people. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce really the other half of this duo, really the other 60% of this duo, my wife Bonnie, please. At this point, I am pleased to make the official announcement that the first 9 permanent buildings on this campus have been placed on the National Register of Historic Places. We will have more to say about that at our luncheon. However, I think it is appropriate that we recognize individuals who helped make all of that possible. And about 1:30, I can't give an exact time, but about 1:30 we will unveil a marker right outside this building, close to University Boulevard, that will be the official designation of this historical area. But I want all of you to meet the individuals who helped make this designation possible, and please hold your applause until all have been presented. First, Mr. Merrill Motor of Louisville. He's the principal architect in the firm of Joseph & Joseph, which designed these beautiful original buildings. Martin Perry, from the National Register Coordinator with the Kentucky Heritage Council. Diana Wells, manager of the Kentucky Highway Marker Program of the Kentucky Historical Society, and Reverend Lloyd Dean, chairman of the Round County Historical Marker Committee. Clara Keys, special collections library at our librarian at our Camden Carroll Library, and there she is, way in the back, good. And this could not have happened if it wasn't quarterbacked or led or by a person. And that was really done by our managing director of our Kentucky Folk Art Center, Jill Jane Reed. Jill Jane, if you would stand, please. And we also want to extend public recognition and thanks to David Morgan, who could not be here today. He is the executive director of the Kentucky Heritage Council and state preservation officer. Please, let's recognize all of these fine folks. Presentation of the Founders Day Award for University Service is the responsibility of the Board of Regents. Performing that honor today is the chairman of the board, a respected corporate executive who retired a few years ago as the chief fiscal officer of Kentucky's largest corporation, Ashland Oil, now Ashland Incorporated. The university benefits almost daily from this man's wisdom, and just a personal comment. There's a few telephone numbers I know by heart, and there's a few telephone numbers that I dial in my sleep. This happens to be one of them, and I'm always grateful that the person on the other side is the chairman of our board, Mr. Bill Seaton.
Thanks, Ron. I am pleased today to represent the Board of Regents at this ceremony. The Founders Day Award for the University Service is the highest recognition afforded by this institution to those who have served in a superior fashion over a sustained period of time. Today, on behalf of the Board of Regents and the entire university, it's my privilege to make two such presentations to outstanding members of our campus community. At this time, I invite Mr. Sherman Arnett to join me at the podium. Although he retired from the university in 1981 after nearly 10 years of service as a financial aid officer, Mr. Arnett earlier had built a strong reputation as a public school administrator in Rowan and Elliott counties. He also found time to serve 3 terms in the state legislature, including the co-sponsorship of the bill which gave us university status in 1966. The Alumni Association inducted him into the Hall of Fame. But this man's service did not end when he left the campus. Instead, he turned his time and energy to the building of a public water system, Rowan Water Incorporated, which today serves thousands of rural citizens in Rowan and surrounding counties. He's also a minister of the Free Will Baptist Church. Mr. Arnett, on behalf of the university, I am pleased to present you with this Founders Day Award for university service. And you get a plaque. Now they want to get your photo. You got enough? Let's get 6 of them. Mr. Ham, will you join us at the podium, sir? Our second honoree, like the first, is a graduate of the university. He's been a classroom teacher on this campus for 30 years, first at Breck and for most of the time in university classes. Hundreds of our graduates remember him as a gifted coach who built our forensics program into a national power. But more importantly, he motivated and challenged his students to be the best they could be. Professor Ham also made time for his professional life outside the classroom. He founded and led the Kentucky Educational Speech and Drama Association for several years. In addition to promoting speech and theater education at all levels, our honoree has worked tirelessly to raise thousands of dollars for scholarships in honor of his former students and colleagues. His award today for service is long overdue recognition of the countless hours he has given to plan and execute special events such as the holiday dinner and the spring gala. Mr. Ham, on behalf of the university, I'm pleased to present you with this plaque. Now let's get you fixed up. Indeed you may.
I don't know how well this is going to work. I really didn't expect this large a group. But what you're looking at is really the real Harlan Ham. There have been some recent changes made, as I think you can see. Try to keep in mind, though, as I talk to you today, that this is really me. I want to try for just a second or two to trace some footprints in the sand, so to speak, that I believe are very important. It was right around 1965 when President Emeritus Adrian Doran and Madame Doran called me to ask if I would come back to work at Morehead State University. And of course, I didn't have to be asked twice. I knew the answer immediately upon hearing the question. I thought at the time, though, that my only responsibility would be to teach speech theater curriculum in the Breckenridge High School, which you've already heard mentioned. And then secondly, I thought that my other responsibility would be to teach 1/2 time at the university on the curriculum level in communication. Well, shortly thereafter, I realized that being a professor is far more than simply going into a classroom and teaching a lesson or two to students. So you've got to go the extra mile that at all times will take your students beyond and above the goals where you want them to be. And thirdly, you must make charges, and you must make commands, and you must reach out to task force, to committees, and you've got to work within each college for the total good of each student within that particular college. Fourth, I believe that you've got to make challenges of a far wider nature than what I've been discussing for the total university. If the university is going to progress, we must at all times be in a state of change, in a state of flux. Fifth, when asked to do so, I believe that you've got to serve on university faculty senates, either on subcommittees or as an officer, and working cooperatively with the current administration, you've got to try to solve the problems that are going on for the sake of the faculty and the students. It's only when you have a pleased faculty and a pleased student body that you're going to have a totally pleased university. 6, there are a whole array of responsibilities which include conducting timely research in an organized, systematic manner so that the teaching that you're doing in your classroom and the publication that you're doing is going to be of vital help to the students that you're serving. 7, I don't know what your convictions are, but I have very personal convictions about some of the social and cultural highlights that have been deleted from the university over the years, and I've mentioned these time and time again in some of the committee meetings that have gone on campus. I think that we need to return to the days when the students can take pride in the work that they're doing, when they take pride in the college that they attend, and when they take pride in the region that they're living in. 8, I believe that a system that provides for all people, not just those that can afford education, that this is the type of education that we need to work for. So it's for that reason that I've spent much of my time working, raising thousands of dollars, trying to help needy students stay in school who need the money in order to do so. And I would hope that in future years that many of you will contribute to that effort as well. Then, of course, we've heard about the other events that have been mentioned, such as the holiday dinner party event, the gala under Mrs. Eaglin's superb guidance, the holiday dinner party under Mrs. Grody's superb guidance, and so it goes. While those are primarily faculty activities, when you have a happy faculty, almost inevitably you're going to have a happy student body. So I think that the students are better for that. So that the list does not become overly long, I believe that we have an obligation on a local level in ways that will help improve town-gown relationships, both on and off the campus, for our lives and for our students. I trust that you will agree that we all have a responsibility to serve on local, state, national, regional, and international committee levels, both on boards, as members of boards, and as members of task forces. I did, though, in a limited way, do a research project. I've only done one in my life, but it was limited. It was a research project that was written to try to update the oral communication skills of communication teachers in grades 7 through 12. Now, as you know, I have been very active in KERA and all the work that has gone on with that. To give further emphasis to the nature of all of what that means, I'd simply like to state that what has brought me to this point in my life, I recall clearly people like President Emeritus Grody and President Eaglin stating to us over and over and over and over again, make sure that you know what it is that you're trying to do. State it as I believe statements, and then develop a systematic way of determining whether or not you are accomplishing those statements, and check them off as you have done so. I've tried over my 30 years plus here at Morehead State to be the very best faculty member that I can be. I recently found a poem that meant a whole lot to me, and it says, one night, a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. From each scene, he noticed two sets of footprints. one belonging to him and the other belonging to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back. There were footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there had only been one set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times of his life. Now that really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. He said, "Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I've noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there has only been one set of footprints in the sand. I don't understand why, when I needed you, you would leave me." The Lord replied, "My precious son, I love you. I would never leave you. During your times of trials, of suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I was carrying you." So to the entire group involved in my selection, from President and Mrs. Eaglin to Suzette Redwine, and all the others who have been involved, I thank you from the tip of my toes to the top of my hairless head, and you'll never ever possibly know how happy you've made me. Thank you.
I have the distinct honor to introduce our speaker today. Our 1995 Founders Day speaker believes that if discipline isn't present, then neither is learning. It was that belief and its implementation that catapulted him into the national spotlight a few years ago. When the first day of classes in September 1983 at an East Side high school in Paterson, New Jersey, was marred by a stabbing, Principal Joe Clark vowed the rest of the year would be different. In his first week at East Side, he expelled 300 students for various discipline and drug-related problems. Instead of offering excuses for such behavior, he believes in holding high expectations for students, challenging them to develop habits for success, and confronting them when they fail to reform. After 2 years of his leadership, the Farmer Raucous School was declared a model school by the state's governor. Then in 1986, Mr. Clark was named one of the nation's 10 principles of leadership, and later former President Ronald Reagan designated him as a model educator. His efforts at East Side earned him a cover story in Time magazine, a profile on 60 Minutes, appearances on Nightline and Donahue, and the acclaimed film Lean on Me, which, by the way, after meeting him, he could have starred in, I think. But it was based upon his success in restoring order to that inner city high school. Now a consultant, Mr. Clark helps school districts with problems, offering alternative solutions for their educational programs. He is also the author of a book, Laying Down the Law, which incorporates the message of pride in self. He currently is working on a second book, which will deal with the issues of effective school management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Joe Clark.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I thank you so much for that very warm reception. Already, you have exhibited a great act of faith. You have applauded for me, and I haven't said anything. I thank you. Dr. Eaglin, Board of Regents, honorees, faculty members, students, ladies and gentlemen, I can only say to you this morning as I stand before you that my heart is beating with incessant glee. My innards are churning with extreme rapidity, and trillions of little joy bells have decided simultaneously to have choir rehearsal deep down in the marrow of my bones. I'm very happy to be here with you on this most formidable occasion. Dr. Eaglin, thank you so much for those kind remarks. After listening to you, sir, I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. It's sort of like what the cow said to Mama on a cold winter day. It's so good to have your warm hand. My grandmother raised me, and she always reminded me of some basic things when I got too big for my britches, Brian, Anthony. My grandmother would say to me, Joe, you'd better stop that peacocking, because today's peacock is tomorrow's feather duster. Grandfather was a preacher man in the old Baptist church, Reverend, and he was a little more poignant. He would say to me, Joe, remember as you go through life, the curl in a pig's tail ain't got a damn thing to do with the taste of ham. It's what you do ultimately. It's what you do ultimately in life to bring about a change, to bring about a reviviscence in a decadent society that will lead you to being a consequential entity in the whole scheme of things on planet Earth. May God grant us the grace to accept with serenity those things we cannot change, to change those things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish one from the other. William Penn coined it well when he noted that I shall not pass this way but once. Therefore, any good thing I can do or any kindness I can show to another person, let me do it now, for I shan't this way again. Eagles, I don't know what your ultimate destinies are going to be in life, but there's one thing I can state to you unequivocally. The ones amongst you who will be happiest are those who have sought and found ways to serve others. The highest individual destiny is to serve rather than to rule. I was at a university last month, and a professor came over to me very arrogantly. Her hauteur was most palpable. A hubristic being. And she subsequently began to spew out bovine balderdash like an incontinent octogenarian. I was mesmerized by her antics, because most of what she said had about as much meaning as mammary glands attached to the buttocks of a male bovine. Didn't make too much sense, but I listened. And she began to say, I've written in many journals, I'm in the process of writing my book, and she went on and on and on. Oh, what a meaningless diatribe. But I listened. And after she had completed this rather rigorous course, I looked at her and lamented, really. I said to her, Dr. Hall, my name is Joe Clark. Cover of Time magazine, a book, working on my second, presidential citations, speaking engagements, 2 60-minute profiles, a movie? Dr. Hall, who cares? Who cares? Ralph Waldo Emerson put it succinctly. What have you done to make this world just a smidgen better, be it by a healthy child, a green garden patch, social condition? Those are the things that ultimately are consequential. John Wesley wrote it well. The purpose of your existence here, Brian, Anthony, the purpose of your existences is not to make a living, but to make a life, a useful life, a purposeful life, a significant life, a meaningful life. Therefore, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in as many ways as you can, in as many places as you can, forever often as you can. That is the essence of your being here on planet Earth. You might wonder why I have the propensity not to stand behind the lectern. I was speaking last year at a university, and as I had begun to speak, the microphone came down once. Dr. Eaglin, it came down twice, it came down thrice. Up jumped chairperson, dime in hand, and she began to work on the microphone. And after a few moments, she turned to the audience and said very abruptly, don't worry, it's not too bad. The speaker has a loose screw. So since that time, I just refuse to have my impeccable character besmirched, and thus I tend not to find a rendezvous here behind the lectern. I am convinced, as I trace this land, that we had better begin to expeditiously work together cooperatively to bring about the appropriate changes that are having a deleterious effect upon the direction in which my country is going. And I want to say to you tonight, today, one person with courage can make a change. One person with desire can bring about a change in our society, but you must be willing to stand up for what you believe. You must be willing to stand up and take the consequences of your actions. Oh, I moan the apathetic crowd, the coward and the weak, who see the world's great anguishes and wrongs and dare not speak. No man, no woman is free who is afraid to speak the truth as he or she knows it. The worst type of cowardice is to know what is right and not do it. Let us stand up for what we believe and be willing to take the ultimate consequences of our actions. Dr. King said it well. If you haven't found something worth dying for, you're not fit to live. We have become a people who are wimps and afraid to stand up for what is right. We keep down in the depths of ourselves how we really feel, and yet we spew out something else. Stand up so that we can bring about the appropriate changes in our society. And I would like to say this to you on Founders Day. And it has been sort of etching away at the basic fabric of my soul. And today, I would like to urge you, us, as Americans, to come together as one. We have become a nation of squabbling nationalities. Toxic cynicism abounds. Moral defoliation is everywhere. Let us strike the tents of hatred and animosity, and let us meet on an oasis of cerebral understanding of cooperativeness, recognizing that our fates are inextricably woven together, that divided we fall, together we stand. Let us come together as one and begin to recognize that we shan't judge people by the color of their skin, by the size of their lips, by the size of their nose. That's sick. You judge people ultimately by the manifest character that they exhibit. My grandfather told me, he said, Joe, remember this. Black is not beautiful. White is not beautiful. Brown, red, yellow are not beautiful colors. Beauty is never skin deep. Beauty is something that is manufactured and generated on the inside of you. And as a result of the way you live, the way you carry yourself, it manifests itself effervescently on your exterior. Let us come together as one. Not as a slave to a master. Not as a superior, a subordinate lopping up to a superior. Not as a product to a producer, but as human beings who have learned mutual respect for one another. And thus, on this Founders Day, I would like to make a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the people of the earth and to the principles of humanity for which they stand. One family under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice, equal opportunity for all. Integrity and honesty shall never be betrayed. And I hold you, Eagles, and myself accountable for always having the courage to do the right thing. I'm afraid that our lack of honesty and candor has led to a type of insipidity that abounds in our society. Samuel Butler said it well. If we would dare to be candid with one another 100 years from now, we would have far less sorrows. And I will say to the students here, black, white, Hispanic, Asiatic, Native American, polka dotted, when you begin to dialogue with one another, this is the crucial point. When you begin to interact with one another, tell the truth about how you really feel. And stop hiding behind a surreptitious, deceptive grin. Itching where you don't scratch and scratching where you don't itch. Oh, let us stand up like men and women and tell the truth about how you feel. And when you do this, you see, we will be able to ameliorate the schisms and the fissures that are eroding the basic quality of life in our country. Let us come together as one. I'm often asked about education in America, and how I perceive the condition and the conditions, and what do I think can be done to bring about a rejuvenation. And I want to state this to you this morning emphatically, that our American educational system as we know it today, in general, but specifically in the inner cities where you have your blacks, your disadvantaged whites, Hispanics, Native Americans, and Asians, is brain dead. It's a dog that will not hunt. Millions of young people are being turned out of these bastions, these cesspools of mediocrity, unable to read, write, and function in a manner commensurate with what is necessary for a democratic society to flourish. And somehow we are going to have to collectively and synergistically come together and begin to fix it. I sincerely believe that the individuals who are deemed the culprits are erroneously tagged. Teachers are blamed for the declivity in education. Teachers are blamed for the fact that Johnny can't read, the drug problems, the wanton violence, 3 million acts of violence every single year. Teachers are assailed for the fact that 15 million young people live $1,000 above the poverty level. Teachers are not responsible for that. Teachers are not responsible for the fact that 25% of our youth today, 25% of our youth come from mothers who have had no medical attention in the first trimester. 25% of American youth have never been vaccinated for polio. 4 million latchkey babies, drug alcoholic syndrome youth have flooded our schools. And these things have had a very deleterious effect upon the outcome of the product. Teachers are not responsible. We are responsible as a community and as Americans. And we must understand that a weakened educational system means a weakened form of government, means a weakened international competitiveness. A weakened educational system means a weakened standard of living, and ultimately a weakened democracy. Somehow we're going to have to empower parents, empower teachers, and empower students to become major players in the overall management and mechanism of the educational process. Teachers are powerless. Parents are powerless. Students are powerless. And as a result, they have no vested interest in the type of education that's taking place. Let us rethink the educational paradigm. Maybe let us take the tax dollar from the educrats and bureaucrats, and maybe we should empower parents to make some decisions about where their children go to school. Teachers, I would like to commend you for doing an exemplary job, especially under the many adverse situations and circumstances that you inevitably confront. Often asked about the baseball bat. The baseball bat is something that has caused an undue amount of consternation in the land. How many saw the movie? Very wise, sapient people. Have I ever used the baseball bat? Yes. Many times, on innumerable occasions. I used the baseball bat when the media was around. I've never, ever carried a baseball bat through the corridors of any school. That would be fatuous. It would be ridiculously frivolous. It would be absurd and not indicative of a man or woman in charge of his or her faculties. I use this as a vehicle to attract the attention of the media, to make the media, the world cognizant of the fact that there was something wrong in our educational system and we must do something to correct it quickly. These kids in the inner cities and throughout the land, they have Uzis, AK-47s, bazookas, hand grenades. They would have blown me to smithereens with a baseball bat. And the thing that has alarmed me is the pervasiveness of the notion throughout the land that I actually carried a bat. Everywhere I go, they call me Batman. And now you know the true essence of the bat. Professor Hams talked about being the best you can be. Let me give you a little insight into the bat. Sitting in my office one day about 5:30 p.m. after a very difficult day's work, Time magazine came running in and said, "Joe Clark, we're going to put you on the cover of Time magazine." I said, "Me? Joe Clark? A poor little black welfare boy," used to be poor, "from Newark, New Jersey?" I'm only rich now because I've given many contributions to bring about a change, so I feel rich. A poor black welfare boy from Newark on the cover of Time magazine? Well, they only put guys on like Saddam Hussein, Reagan, Bush, Hillary Rodham. Joe Clark? Oh, that'll never happen. They began to take a myriad of pictures in classrooms, holding the hands of students. Finally, a reporter said to me, "Hold this baseball bat, Mr. Clark." I took the baseball bat thinking I would never see it again, and I was doing all types of ominous things. I was just an ominous spectator. I thought I would never see the portrait again. One day I was walking through the Newark airport, Bryant. I was moving with alacrity. Briskness. He looked at me like this. I figured I would clarify it. I was moving with alacrity. I looked down, I saw a handsome black face on the cover of Time magazine. I said, "Great God Almighty, that looks like me." But I had to take a second glance. You know how some people say we all look alike? So, oh, nobody here, of course. So I took a second glance, and there was Joe Clark on the cover of Time magazine with a baseball bat. You can't touch this. Now, my philosophy is always very simple. I'm an honest, humble man, albeit forthright. And I tell people everywhere I go, you have to respect me. Because after all, how many of you were on the cover of Time magazine? What does a baseball bat? Professor Ham, you said it best. It means be the best you can be. It's your turn at bat, students. What are you going to do? Strike out or hit a home run. And finally, when we old Baptists say finally, it doesn't mean immediately. It means we're getting powerfully close. Finally, I say to you today, to the young people especially, be the best you can be. Whose boy are you? Whose girl are you? Oh, I know who you are. The resemblance is unmistakable. You are a child of the universe. That's some kind of inheritance you have there. So go out and live up to that inheritance. You are a child of the universe, no less than the stars, no less than the trees. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with your God, whoever you conceive him, her to be. Whatever your goals, whatever your objectives, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. For with all the sham and with all the drudgery, this is still a beautiful world. Be happy, be cheerful, be the best you can be. Strive to be the absolute best. It is not a tragedy, and bear this in mind, to have a goal and not reach that goal. It is not a calamity to die, to have a dream and to die never have fulfilled that dream. It is not a disaster to have an ideal and never reach that ideal. It is not a disgrace to shoot for the stars and miss, but it is a disgrace never to have any stars to shoot for. Low aim, not failure, is an absolute disgrace. No vision, and you perish. No ideal, and you're lost. Your heart must ever cherish some dream at any cost, some hope, some faith to cling to, some rainbow in the sky, some melody to sing to, some service that is high. Robert Browning said it well when he spoke about Andrea del Sarto. Oh, a man's reach must exceed his or her grasp, or else what is heaven for? Always strive to be on top. It's the bottom that's overcrowded. Never accept mediocrity. You show me an individual who accepts mediocrity, I will show you an abject failure. Do what you can with what you have and never be satisfied. Always strive to be better than that which you are. Young people, a lot of you are going to miss success because it comes dressed in overalls and looks like work. Don't you understand that a diamond is nothing but a piece of coal that stuck to its job? A grapefruit is nothing more than a lemon that had a chance and took it. You be the best you can be. I need some help, young lady. What is your name? Deborah, help me out, please. Are you a student here? I know you're qualified to assist me. It was Shakespeare's Hamlet. She said, oh, God. It was Shakespeare's Hamlet when Polonius told his son Laertes, is it coming back to you? As Laertes was going out into the world, Polonius said to him, this of all things be true to thine self, and this must follow as the night the day. Thy cannot be false to any man. And that's what life is about. Life is about accepting who you are and being proud of what you are, Deborah, and then going out into the world and glorifying over the perfection that God has made of you. If you don't like yourself because you're black or Hispanic or white or Asian American or Native American, if you think God made a mistake, you indict God. And you know God don't play that. Right, Reverend? Be the best. Be the best you can be. And my philosophy is simple. You have skills that no one else has. You were not put on this universe by accident. You are here for a specific reason. You were born to win. You came into this world fighting. And you don't have to get excuse or permission from anybody to do and say what God put you on this planet to do or say. And if you are not committed to your goals and to your objectives, I can only say this to you this morning: you will be ineffective. You will be unhappy. You'll always have that tendency to look back. But once you become committed, providence will step in. And all things will begin to happen in your life that you never envisioned could and would take place. You don't have to get permission to do what you were put on this planet to do. And if you don't do what you were put here to do, you will be unhappy, unproductive, and miserable. Stand up for what you believe and be the best you can be. And how do you know when you've ultimately reached that final goal of achievement? This is all I ask you to do. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, when the world crowns you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that person has to say. It's not father, mother, or wife upon whose verdict must pass, but the verdict of the guy who means most in your life is the one staring back from that glass. She's the one to please. Never mind all the rest. He will be with you clear to the end. And you have passed the most dangerous test if the guy in the mirror is your friend. You can fool the whole world down the pathway of life and get pats on your back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartbreaks and tears if you've tricked the guy in the glass. Be the best you can be. Oh, not everybody can be on the cover of Time magazine. That's for a select group of people. That's irrelevant. You might not have speaking engagements or 60-minute profiles or books or presidential citations or a movie. All of that is for naught if you have not been the best that you can be. Doug Moloch said it best. If you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, then just be a little scrub in the valley. But be the best little scrub by the side of the hill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a bush, be a bit of the grass. Some highway happier make. You can't be a highway, just be a trail. You can't be that big sun, just be a little star. For it's not by size that you win or you fail. You be the best of whatever you are. If you want something bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it, if you simply go after what you want with all of your sagacity, strength, and capacity, with all of your hope, faith, and unswerving pertinacity, I say that ultimately the universe will yield to you, and you will go catapulting from the depths of despair to the perfect cadence of success. Be the absolute best you can be. It's been scintillatingly splendiferous just tabernacling with you this morning, and I thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I thank you so much. Very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. I would just like to say this. I was asked a question, excuse me, doctor. I just have to say this. I was asked by several students about the authenticity of the movie. How accurate was the movie? And I can say this to you because you are honorable individuals, devout, pious, I can tell that. And I know that you're not going to divulge this information to anyone outside of these four walls. Media, I'm depending on you. How accurate was the movie? I say this very chagrinedly. They downplayed me.
Mr. Chair, I didn't know if I was going to take it from you or not. Mr. Clark, we are so very pleased that you would accept our invitation to come. I think you had a wonderful message that has been well received by this audience, and we hope that maybe we can get you back again sometime in the future. Thank you again very much. I know we are having to disperse, but if I may, in the program are a list, or is a list, of the individuals on the Founders Day Committee, and I would like for all of those that are here this morning to stand and be recognized for all of the work that they have put into overseeing this whole day. With the Founders Day Committee, Suzette is the chair, and all of the others that help, let's give them a hand too. I hope you will take in the rest of the day's activities, or we are adjourned.
Division of University Advancement, we welcome you. I would like to introduce the members of the Foundation Board of Trustees who are here. Merle Allen, who is our secretary. I'll introduce him all if you just hold your applause. Thank you, Merle. Lisa Browning, our treasurer. Okay. Brock Connell, our president, who's here at the head table. Porter Daly. Tim Rhodes. Linda Simpson, representing the Family Association on the board, and Resby Wheeler, our vice president. Thank you very much for your volunteer service. We felt the protocol would be that we would introduce the people who were paying for the lunch first. Then we'll do now the head table. At my far right, Bonnie Eaglin, our First Lady. Next to her, Mr. Cottle, you met earlier. Secretary Crit Llewellyn, you'll hear more from her and about her very shortly. And next to Crit is the wittiest, brightest, most pleasant, inspirational man I have ever known in this season of salary setting, President Eaglin. On the far left, and that's a wrong place for a Baptist preacher to be, I know. Bill Rose, you met, and then Bobby Cottle, Brock's wife, one of our great volunteers. For those who were not privileged to be part of our convocation this morning, let me run through some other introductions quickly for you. We have 4 members of our Board of Regents. Over here. Helen Pennington from West Liberty, John Rosenberg from Prestonsburg, Bruce Mattingly, our faculty regent, and Gene Caudill, our staff regent. Thank you. We have with us the 2 honorees from the convocation, this year's winners of the Founders Day Award, Mr. Sherman Arnett, Sherman, you would, and Professor Harlan Hand. Congratulations. Mr. Clark had to leave to catch his plane, but he left me a souvenir in case I had any problems keeping order. We have 2 members of the General Assembly with us, Senator Blevins, Walter Blevins, Senator, and State Representative John Rose Stacy. John also did us a favor by bringing his gracious wife, Kim, with him. Kim, pleasure to see you. Kathy Mueller is here representing Senator McConnell. Thank you, Kathy. For several years, we teased Kathy that the 7th Congressional District was the only place that Senator McConnell didn't have a field office. And the General Assembly took care of that. Now we're in the 6th, and that's where Kathy's located. Thank you. It's time to get on with our business. A student asked me the other day, what is the business of university advancement? And I said, very simply, friends and funds. And that's what we're about here today, thanks to you generous folks. The first order of business will be presentation of a couple of gifts. At this time, I'd like to ask President Eaglin to go down. He and President Cottle from the foundation to go down on the lower level to accept a presentation from Martha Johnson. Martha is Director of Community Relations at the company we used to call Ashland Oil, but which is now Ashland Incorporated. Martha's here representing Judy Thomas and Dan Lacey from that fine organization.
Such a pleasure to be here today. It really is. See both of you in the possession of this check for $75,000, and that completes our pledge of $375,000 from Ashland Incorporated Foundation.
For those who didn't hear Martha, this is the 5th year pledge, $75,000, and if we match this with new and increased gifts in the next 5 months, Ashland Oil will give us another $75,000. So the total commitment, $750,000 over a 5-year period. Thank you very much, Martha. We love that kind of mail.
I can deliver it.
Yes, that's right. And a lot better delivery than Dan Lacey could make, certainly. And now an announcement and a presentation at the same time. I'm going to ask several folks to come forward. First, Mr. Michael H. Chackers of Springfield, Ohio, who is the president and CEO of Chackers Theaters Incorporated. We're going to make a presentation to Mr. Chackers on behalf of his company, Chackers Theaters Incorporated, as our most valuable giver. We're going to have some other folks join this photograph. Mayor Greenhill could not be with us because of illness. I'd like to ask Superintendent Kay Freeland from the Round County Schools to come forward. Dr. Ewell Scott, the president of the Learning for Life Foundation, which is a support arm of the public schools. Ted Pack, one of our faculty members, who's president of the Morehead Theater Guild. At this time, it's my privilege to announce to you officially that Mr. Chackers and his family, who are the owners of Chackers Theaters Incorporated, today have given to the MSU Foundation the building and equipment of the Trail Theater, valued at $110,171. In partnership with the public schools, the Learning for Life Foundation, and the Morehead Theater Guild, we're hopeful of finding additional grant support to convert the Trail Theater into a performing arts center for use by the university's theater department, by the public schools, and by the Community Theater Guild. Mr. Chackers, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We also recognize each year at this luncheon our volunteer fundraiser of the year. It was an easy selection this year. This fellow who we thought might be slowed down by a health problem, kept right on going. He helped generate 2 new scholarship funds. He's the vice president of the foundation. He's a retired educator and one of the dearest friends we have. We're going to get the Volunteer Fundraiser of the Year award to Mr. Resby Wheeler from West Liberty. We had Mr. Wheeler come over the other day to get a new photograph, and his wife sent me word that she had cleaned him up the best she could. Thank you, Resby, and thank you, Dorothy. It's the Foundation's philosophy that we need to recognize and thank those who are willing to help themselves. Because of that, each year we recognize members of the faculty and staff who've gone that extra mile to help us find those external resources that the university so desperately needs. This year we're pleased to recognize with the Faculty Staff Fundraiser Award 2 colleagues in the Department of Industrial Education and Technology whose personal initiative and hard work resulted in an equipment gift to their department, a state-of-the-art device. I try to explain it to you, but I don't understand it myself. But it's almost $40,000. Dr. Jim Smallwood and Bob Hayes, would you come forward, please? Thank you, fellas. By the way, all the previous recipients of these awards are listed in your program today. Last but certainly not least by any measure, a staff member who's entitled to this award, who could probably get it every other year, like we thought Harlan was going to get it so many times we were going to retire it. But Jonelle Tobin, who is the director of our Licking Valley Center in West Liberty, is the staff outstanding fundraiser. Jonelle? Those of us who work in the development office have a little saying that in the area of West Liberty, where one or two people are gathered together who may have money, there Jonelle will be also. Thank you very much. And now we're going to recognize 14 new MSU fellows. Most of you in this room are already fellows, and we want to be able to have this meeting someday at the football stadium to have so many folks. Fellows receive this beautiful pylon in MSU colors on good Kentucky walnut, and it reads, "In grateful appreciation of significant financial support of the university, Morehead State University Fellow," and then each award is personalized. The criteria for becoming an MSU Fellow is also in your program, and we'll be happy to take your name. Alphabetically, first, Dr. and Mrs. Bill Booth of Morehead. Dr. Booth is a professor of art, heavily involved with us in several fundraising activities. His current assignment, he's working for Bonnie Eaglin, chairing the silent auction, which will be part of this year's spring gala.
We get a choreography.
That's right. Bill and Louise Booth, new fellows. Our next recognition is to a dear lady who died several months ago, but remembered us in her will. We have been in contact with her family, and we're hopeful that there will be even more support forthcoming. Her family members could not be here today, but they asked Bob Howerton from our staff, who's our planned giving officer, to accept in their behalf the Fellows Award to the late Lily Chapin. Bob, if you'd come up, please.
Just get your picture taken at that.
And now, by virtue of the gift from their family-held corporation, we're going to have two sets of checkers, or checkers, I guess. By the way, another checkers executive who's here today and who's been part of our enterprise in helping us with this is Mr. Bill Cantor. Bill, let us recognize you. Many of you remember Bill from his various assignments with this company in Morehead over the years. We're always pleased to have an old friend come back. I'd like to invite Mr. and Mrs. Michael H. Checkers to come forward and receive their Fellows Award.
I'm messing this up. I keep moving this over. We need to go that direction. Yes, sir, we sure do. You stay there.
This next presentation represents a homecoming of sorts. As I recall, Mr. and Mrs. Philip Checkers, the Mrs. Checkers in this duo is Amanda, and she's a native of Eastern Kentucky, and we're glad to have her back home. Mr. and Mrs. Philip Checkers, please come forward. Philip is the vice president of the company. We have experienced Philip's generosity before. He's also been a donor of livestock, particularly horses, at the university farm. Philip, thank you again. Dr. and Mrs. Tom Fawcett of Morehead, and Barb asked if she could sit in the back and make the grand entrance. So Barbara, if you would come up. Tom is away at a medical convention, but Barbara is a very important part of that team. We're very appreciative of their support. Barb will accept for both of them. Barbara Fossett. Mr. and Mrs. Mike Mincy. Mike is our Vice President for Student Life. Kathy's an English professor, and she had hoped her class was going to start before she had to have a picture made with Mike, but it didn't work out. Dr. and Mrs. John Philly of Morehead. John, who's in that conservative blue jacket today, which he has already disowned. John's our Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, and Betty is a recent staff retiree. John and Betty Philly. This last one I'll have to accept myself. Mary Helen Westheimer, Phoenix, Arizona. Mary could not be here because of a work conflict, but we thank her. Please give her a round of applause. Let me offer personal regrets for Bill Redwine not being able to be here today. Bill is, unfortunately, on this important day, home in bed with the flu. He's my next door neighbor, so we're going to go home and quarantine him. At this time, President Eaglin will present our speaker.
Also, my personal gratitude for this particular group and what you do in sharing with us your successes to this institution. And I hope we are good stewards and do well by you. I have a very high honor today to introduce a friend and a person that I've gotten to know in my 3-year tenure here. We're very honored to have the top-ranking appointed official in state government as our luncheon speaker. This Frankfort native has a strong background in economic development, marketing, and state government management. She was president of the Greater Louisville Economic Development Partnership and State Arts Commissioner, and Governor Jones saw her abilities and brought her back to state government as Secretary of Tourism, where I first met her, and then named her last November to her current post as Secretary of the State Finance and Administration Cabinet. She is the state's chief fiscal officer. I first met Ms. Llewellyn in 1992, my first year in Kentucky. I was very impressed with her understanding of Eastern Kentucky and her belief that tourism might help improve our economy. She was and is a friendly ear to help Morehead develop its own tourism potential. For example, our dream, which is now starting to come to fruition, of a new home for the Kentucky Folk Arts Center could not have been this close to reality without her personal support, which has brought over $750,000 in state grants alone to this community. Morehead should be eternally grateful to her leadership and faith in us. She's a dynamic and sincere person who honors us today with her involvement in Founders Day. I had to juggle a very busy schedule to be here today. And it's my privilege to present to you the Honorable Crit Llewellyn, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eaglin. I am delighted and honored to be here today, and especially to have received the invitation from a gentleman who has become a good friend. Ron Eaglin is such a wonderful spokesperson for this university all across the state and in Frankfurt. He has a way of asking for help or for assistance or for favors in a way that you just can't turn him down. He was in my office a couple of months ago, and we were talking about some building projects, which I'm now responsible for in my cabinet. And out of the blue, he said to me, "Crit, do you believe in free speech?" I said, "Well, of course I do, Dr. Eaglin." He said, "Good, why don't you come up to Morehead and give us one?" It truly is an honor to be here with you today on this important day when you celebrate the 108th anniversary of higher education in Rowan County and Morehead's 73rd year as a public institution. And on a day when you will dedicate a historic marker that places on the National Register of Historic Places your original campus buildings here at this university. This day is an opportunity that you have treasured over the years to renew your dedication to your rich heritage as you strengthen your commitment to the future. And as I thought about my trip up here today, I began to think about the meaning of this day for you and for this institution, and I thought about how this same theme has been carried out through many of our actions in Frankfurt in the last 3 years in the Jones administration. In the past 3 years in Frankfurt, we have taken steps to preserve our rich culture and heritage, while we have at the same time initiated bold actions that would prepare Kentucky for the 21st century. And we have worked to balance those two initiatives as we have moved forward at both levels. Because I've had the unique opportunity of having been in two very different cabinet positions, tourism and finance, I'm a perfect example of that good liberal arts degree that can prepare you for anything. I have had a unique opportunity to see both sides of the equation, the way that we have dealt with the preservation of our culture and the way we have prepared for the future. And it's reinforced my belief that placing value on our unique heritage is essential to this state building for a strong future. Here in Morehead, as Dr. Eaglin has said, we have worked closely with the university and with the community, and Governor Jones recently announced the grants that would restore the CSX depot here that will be used for community purposes, but also to renovate the old Union Grocery store, the old Union Grocery building, to house the Folk Arts Center. This center will present Kentucky folk art as an important expression of regional culture and economic development. And in another job once, I was Commissioner of the State Department of the Arts in the Collins administration. I have a long-standing interest in Kentucky's native folk art and in its traditional crafts. And it's really been a personal joy for me to be able to play a role in the process of this grant application and seeing it finally now beginning to come to fruition for your Folk Art Center. Another exciting initiative that we've been involved in with Morehead is the Appalachian Cultural Resource Development Project. That project has been coordinated between Morehead and primarily the Kentucky Heritage Council in the Arts, Education, and Humanities Cabinet. That's a regional effort that will document and assist in the development of historic sites. Funds for this project are coming through the Appalachian Regional Commission, through the Governor's Office in Frankfurt, and the Kentucky Heritage Council. And the project will locate, document, and register historic resources and create restoration and redevelopment strategies for those historic sites in 33 counties in eastern Kentucky. That effort will help to prevent historic assets from being lost to future generations, and it will help create new opportunities for visitors to come and explore the unique heritage of this region. It can increase downtown revitalization efforts, and it can draw more tourism to the region. And as Dr. Eaglin said, when we first met, we began talking about tourism and about the role it can play, particularly in this part of the state, in trying to diversify an economy that has suffered from the loss of many of its traditional jobs. And we have the vision of the Morehead leadership here to thank for seeing your role here as a broad-based effort that includes all of those issues related to cultural development and tourism development. And that particular project, the Cultural Resource Development Project, will recognize not only the importance of preserving heritage, but will impact the economy of the region through historic preservation. Projects like these, like the Folk Arts Center, like the Cultural Resources Program here, are being mirrored in communities across the state. And it's been an honor for me to work with so many communities when I was Tourism Secretary on efforts like that, and to serve on the Iced Tea Committee, which gave us an unusual chance to distribute some federal funds for unique projects like the Folk Arts Center. But while we have been focusing on issues like that across Kentucky in this administration, at the same time, Kentucky has been taking the steps to prepare our people for the opportunities of the 21st century. This facility received $6.8 million in funding from the General Assembly in 1994 for the restoration of Lappin Hall, which will be an important part of your future as you prepare the students here for tomorrow's jobs. And that happened with the support not just of the governor, but of your members of the General Assembly, Senator Blevins, Representative Stacy, other legislators who thought that was an important project. And it was the only higher education construction project to survive the '94 session. Not many things did survive that session, and it was an important initiative that a lot of people worked hard for. On another front in Frankfort, we are moving forward. The state has let a contract to create an information highway that will reach into every one of Kentucky's 120 counties. As we look to the future of this economy in this nation, we can no longer depend just on highways. Everything will change for the next generation, and we have to be prepared for that. We are now implementing a plan with a consortium of South Central Bell, GTE, and a number of local exchange carriers that will provide a telecommunications infrastructure that can carry voice, data, and video into every one of our 120 counties. It's a system that will be unrivaled in any state in the country. And eventually, every school, every hospital, every local government, and any private business can be a part of this network. The opportunities and the possibilities that that brings for education and economic development are limitless. And we're making tremendous progress at bringing more technology into the classroom. Recently, the General Accounting Office in Washington, just last week, you might have seen this in the paper, reported that Kentucky now ties for 7th in the nation in having the most computers per student in elementary and secondary education. We rank in the top 10 in the country in the percent of schools now who are reporting sufficient computer networks, fiber optic cables, cable television, and VCRs. That's a tremendous turnaround for a state who's always been at the bottom of the list in every category that education was measured in this nation. At Morehead, you have embraced the governor's call to bring this state to the leading edge of technology by making significant investments here. Those investments, as most of you know in this room, have included computer labs, personal computers for faculty, a backbone to all of your major buildings. You have fiber optics here now in place that can link you to the rest of the world. You have always here considered it part of your mission to enhance the cultural and economic development of Eastern Kentucky. And through the actions that you're taking, whether it's through computer labs or through the Folk Arts Center, you are ensuring that you are fulfilling that mission. And those of you in this room who have been the financial supporters and contributors who have helped make these efforts possible should feel a tremendous sense of accomplishment for what you've been able to provide to this institution. Because the role this institution will play is increasingly important as we look at the future of Kentucky and of the future of Eastern Kentucky in particular. Statewide right now, our economy is doing very well. Through the actions of Governor Jones, members of the General Assembly, and other leaders across this state, we have some statistics that we can point to proudly right now in Kentucky. Our unemployment rate is lower than it has been in 20 years in this state. We've cut over 1,700 full-time jobs from state government, and that's saving the taxpayers $40 million a year. We have cut 10% from the welfare rolls in the last 3 years and returned that many people to productive tax-paying jobs, and that's saving the state $25 million a year. We created more new jobs last year in Kentucky than any year in Kentucky's history, all across the state. And this governor will pass on to the next administration a $100 million rainy day account. That's the surplus fund that gives us financial stability and allows us to be able to borrow money effectively to do the kinds of projects that you need in institutions like this one. And although those numbers sound good, each of you in this room know that not all of those benefits are reaching every part of Kentucky equally. And in particular, this region of the state has unique challenges and many needs. And Morehead State University can and does play a vital role and will increasingly play a role in preparing this region for the future. Change today is rapid and it's unrelenting. We have to be prepared every day to be responsive to that change. But the challenge is that we not only be prepared for that change, but that we protect our roots as we change. You must continue to value all that is unique about your culture, and you must preserve that special love here that people have for their roots. In fact, that may be, as you look to your future, one of this region's greatest strengths is the special love and the special feeling that Eastern Kentuckians have for their land and for their beginnings. Jesse Stewart, who spoke for this region so eloquently, spoke for generations of Eastern Kentuckians in a poem that he called "To See Kentucky's Dark Hills Rise." I weep to see Kentucky's dark hills rise through mist beyond the broad Ohio River, black umbrella knolls against gray skies, low mountain monuments to live forever. These are the mileposts on the road to home. Wheels on wet pavement can't roll fast enough for me to see the blue swift water churn to foam. Down deep ravines and over rocky bluff, my heart beats fast to know I'll hear again songs of these waters on a winter day. For lonesome waters always stir my brain, and I remember them when I'm away. I count the milestones as this bus returns. I'll soon be in our cabin by the pine, and part of lonesome waters and the ferns, and singing mountain heritage that's mine. This region does indeed have a unique heritage. You walk here on hallowed ground each day, land enriched by the tears, the sweat, the blood of those early pioneers who forged their way eastward to settle the wilderness, and then by the struggles of the generations which follow them, generations that have produced poets, artisans, and musicians who have enriched and memorialized the spirit of this region. And it's that venerable spirit which lives on today and which we must draw on as we all prepare for the 21st century. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well said, Madam Secretary. Thank you so much. We're about finished here, but we've got some other business to do outdoors, and the Lord's provided us with a beautiful day for that. Someone asked me as we were coming in, what have the fellows done for MSU? With the new crop coming in today, those of you who are fellows, nearly 200 of you now, have given or pledged $5 million to this institution. Thank you, $5 million worth. Chris Kellogg, a member of the governor's staff, came with Secretary Llewellyn today. I'm sorry, here you are, Chris. Good to have you with us. I have to tell you one thing about Proctor's. We like to tell about committed volunteers. Here's a man who's an avid golfer, part owner of a golf course. He gave up a trip to the Masters to be here today. How about that? President Eaglin said he thinks that Proc may have Bill's flu. Before we go outside, do we want to do the flip phone? You gonna be able to stay? Do the last one. Okay. Jill Reed wrote something about our historic district. If you'll indulge me for another moment or two, that I want to share with you. I think it's very eloquent. Imagine that it is 1932 and you're a young person leaving the hills of eastern Kentucky for the first time because you desperately want to further your education. You want to make a difference in your home. You want to teach. You come to Morehead because if it weren't here, you couldn't afford to go to college. As you walk up University Boulevard from Main Street, you first see the President's home, possibly the largest and most beautiful home you've ever seen. And right behind it, to your left, is a strange building with tile bathing beauties decorating its facade. It's a natatorium. Gosh, an indoor swimming pool. Rounding the corner, going to Raider Administration Building to register, you see a wide expanse of well-tended green with beautiful trees placed in all the right places. Planned by America's foremost landscape design firm, Olmsted Brothers of Brookline, Massachusetts, who did New York City Central Park, by the way. Cradled against the background of forest on the mountain behind are 8 of the largest buildings you've seen in one place, designed by Joseph and Joseph Architects of Louisville. You feel you are in the presence of learning, of education. Today, 4 generations of MSU students can honor the proud heritage symbolized by these majestic, collegiate, Gothic architectural style buildings. Each of these buildings was purposefully designed to illustrate and encourage academic pursuit. We're indebted to the founders of this institution for demanding excellence in the planning and building of the original campus, and to those administrations to follow who took care not to destroy the original intent of the campus plan. As Kentucky's easternmost public university, MSU has been critical to the intellectual and community development of this region. Now Morehead State University has national and state recognition of the impact of this institution on the region which it serves, signified by placement on the National Register of Historic Places and the awarding of a state historical marker honoring the place where it grew. In accepting this designation as a state and national historic landmark, we commit to the preservation of our past and to the stewardship of this precious legacy in our future. Thank you, Jill. Well said. At this time, we will adjourn to the boulevard near Button Auditorium for the unveiling of the state historical marker. Immediately after that, those who would care to join us will go to the front lawn of Lapton Hall to start that construction project. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You did a great job. You should polish that on the way up. You didn't write that.
But we have the